Welcome, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. Tonight, we have a most interesting guest coming to speak with us. His name is Steven D. Kelley, and he is going to be a keynote speaker at the upcoming Alchemy event 2012 Cosmic Activation, which is going to be taking place in Los Angeles, California, this upcoming November 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'm sure we'll be talking with him about that. Steven just has a very wide background. He comes from government contract work. He was heavily involved in producing different types of lasers. He has a book coming out soon, and he's also met with some very instrumental people within the ufology circles, I guess you could say, and so I'm just can't wait to hear about that. So without further ado, I am just going to go ahead and ask him to join us. Steven, are you out there?
Yeah, Rick. Hey, how you doing?
Very good, very good. I understand you've been just battled by the press today, huh? You've just been one interview after another, so we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
So, Steven, you know, it's hard for me to say where we should start off. You want to, where would you like to start off in this life story of yours?
Well, you know, that's you're right. It is pretty complex, and I don't know exactly how much time we've got to devote to that. But for the sake of your listeners, I'll just say that from an early age. Well, I got involved with the electro-optics industry and got heavily involved with the building weapons during the Reagan defense buildup back then. From there, I went off to start my own company, laser company, and subsequently got involved with some of these agencies, CIA and eventually the NSA. And during this process, especially with the NSA guys, they were, you know, it seemed like they were always trying to ship me off to this place out in Las Vegas that we call Area 51.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and that was a reoccurring theme. That followed me for quite a long time, but it seems like these guys, they know more about you than you can imagine. You know, with this alien technology, they go in the future and they can see what everybody's doing in the future, and then they know who to go and try to control and keep an eye on. But it was my experience with these NSA guys that caused me to essentially wake up and realize that the world wasn't what I had been raised to think it was, and that nothing was black and white. It was all shades of gray, and the good guys were a little bit bad, and the bad guys were a little bit good. So that started me on the process of reevaluating my religious concepts and my politics and my feelings about history and everything else. And this process continued over quite a few years, at least 20, 25 years or more. I subsequently got involved with a group people that I would refer to as Templars and Cavers, or the Cavers actually are Bilderberger types, but I call them Cavers because they tend to live in these underground bunkers scattered across the country. And that's a big deal. I think everybody needs to know that there is a shadow government, and they do operate from underground, and it is very much a feudal system. It's almost like the castles from the medieval days. You know, we're still peasants and kings, and the kings now, they build their castles underground, so we don't see these things anymore.
Well, Steven,
but anyway,
let me ask you, how, I take it these underground agencies, or whatever you want to call them, have been around for quite some time. How have they managed to keep the public so stupid, so dumb, so unaware?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's, you know, anytime anybody comes out and they try to spread the word, spread the truth, or leak some of this information, you know, the first thing they do when they go into damage control is they tear that person apart, and they basically portray them as being insane and this has stifled quite a few people. And of course, there's the fear factor. Certainly, probably a lot of people have died in the past trying to promote this sort of information. And I guess the thing is that I reached a point in my life where I decided, well, they haven't killed me yet, so I'm going to go forward, and I don't have any fear anymore. I got over it. And so basically I went from being a very militaristic, technically oriented person working on systems for weapons to a very spiritual Reiki healer type service to others person. So it's quite a contrast from where I was 20 years ago.
So when you were back working in these government agencies, did you just have an epiphany one day and just say, this is not where I need to be, or this is not how I should be living my life? Or
That's exactly right. In fact, you're the first person to really bring up that word, which I guess I could tell you the story and how it happened.
Sure.
But I was when I was dealing with these NSA guys, and bear in mind, I didn't know they were NSA. Back in those days, we didn't even really know about the NSA. I thought it was just another CIA group. But I was sitting in an office one day with the head of the group that I was dealing with, and he was telling me about how the CIA or these commandos that he represented, they would go into these villages in the jungles, say like supposed communist sympathizers, and I believe this was in Honduras, and they would go in there and they would basically kill everything: men, women, children, dogs, goats, pigs, cats, whatever, chickens, kill everything. Fly in a helicopter with a big bulldozer underneath it, and they would drop this bulldozer down, and somebody get on the bulldozer and scrape out a big trench, and then they would push the entire village into this trench, cover it up with dirt, and fly the bulldozer away, and everybody would disappear, and nothing would be left but a clearing in the forest. And I remember sitting there listening to this story thinking, oh my God, these people are monsters. This is my government, and this is one nation under God and everything else. And I realized maybe we're not such good guys that we think we are, and maybe those bad guys aren't quite as bad as we've been led to believe. And this was my big epiphany.
Wow.
And it's actually the first chapter in my book. I open with that story, I guess for shock value, but that's what really caused me to wake up and go back and reevaluate everything I knew about history, religion, and politics. And it's been a long journey, but it's been very productive, and we can certainly go into more detail on that if you'd like.
Absolutely. I just wanted to ask you a little bit about your thoughts on the whole UFO phenomenon. Just real quickly, if someone were to walk in here right now and say, Steve, are UFOs real? Are they non-human? What would you have to tell them?
I would have to say that yes, 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 and no, and yes. Well, there's lots of different entities out there that are visiting us. There's something like 8,000 different entities scattered across the universe. A large portion of those entities are human, and then there's a lot that are not human or something else. But so when we see UFOs flying around, these are extraterrestrials as well as Germans. They're Nazis left over from World War II that have been flying out of secret bases in New Schwabenland over there in Antarctica. Victor Schauberger was the big scientist who was a phenomenal researcher, but he developed anti-gravitation devices for the Germans as well as vortex implosion devices for generating power. And so, yeah, they've been building these Hannibus, Vrills, and various different names that they call these things. So, yeah, those things are still flying. Now, as far as the ETs are concerned, people should understand that all of the ETs fall into two basic categories, and that is the service to self entities and the service to others entities. And if you had to say, well, which side is which, you could say that the white hats, or the good guys as we would like to think about them, although we don't use the term good and evil, would be the Pleiadians, the humanoids, and they are devoted to service to others. They are the space hippies, as the military likes to call them. The other guys,
hippies. I have never heard that.
Never heard about the space hippies?
I have never heard that term. I've never heard that term.
Well, they're all about love and light and all this wonderful, compassion and everything else. And so they're likened unto the space hippies. But it's amazing because they're actually at war with the entities that control the Earth, which are service to self entities. And those would be the Draco reptilians and the little grays that work for them, and some other non-humanoid species. But yeah, the reason why we get so much propaganda regarding the little gray guys is because they are the ones that our government made the treaty with after the Roswell incident, and they get all the PR. Now, the Pleiadians, who are most well known for their contact with people such as Billy Meyer, who I was associated with after my falling out with the NSA, those are the humanoids, and they believe in a non-intervention, and they want to help us. They want to help us progress and get us through this transition, and they've actually come and taken an active role in doing battle with the controllers of the Earth, who are essentially the Illuminati and their masters, the reptoids and the reptilians, and this is an epic struggle. So,
and it's been going on. It's been going on for
Klingons, yeah,
for years and years and years.
Were you talking about the battle that's going on right now?
Yeah, you were saying between the Pleiadians and the Greys.
Oh yeah, sure. Well, if for a good way to look at this is it's like kind of like Star Wars. You've got the Empire and you've got the Rebels. Well, I guess in this case your Luke Skywalkers and your Jedis are going to be the space hippies, the Pleiadians, and your Darth Vaders and your Stormtroopers are the other guys. I'll tell you though, I want people to understand that the end result of all of this experience and all of this information that I've had to digest all these years is that we need to devote our lives to serving others. And if for any reason, it's because as we approach this transition, think of it as a graduation. What we've been going through the last 20,000, 10,000 years, whatever that constitutes this epoch that we're in, we're getting to graduate. And basically, a passing grade would be at least 51% service to others. And anything less than that, and you're going to be left behind, and you're not going to get a ticket out of here with the rest of us.
Now, is this what the Alchemy event that you're going to be speaking at? Is that what this is going to be talking about at this?
Well, I got to be honest with you. There's a lot of speakers who have made careers out of discussing these various issues, and with relationship to, say, like Nibiru and the Anunnaki and all these various other issues that people like to discuss. And I cannot say that I'm completely familiar with the message that all of these speakers are saying. I know that they're all pretty much along the same type of message. But I'll tell you this: when I get up on that stage and I start talking, they're going to shut the doors and turn off the live feed, and I'm the only one they're doing that for.
I wish I could be there.
I wish you could too, but I'll tell you though, my book is out. It just came out 2 days ago.
Oh.
It's available for purchase right now.
Well, what is the name of the book?
The name of the book is Lasers, Cavers, and Magic, and that's Cavers, Cavers, and of course Cavers refers to these guys that live in these underground bunkers. But it's available right now on lulu.com, Lulu.com. And if you go there and you type in a search for lasers, cavers, and magic, it'll pop right up, and you'll see me dressed up in SWAT gear with a big gun with a silencer and lasers and, you know, flashlights. And that was my old self, one of my pictures from the old days.
Well, you know, you are the second author that I've spoken to that has the word magic in the title of the book.
Uh-huh.
What is this association with the word magic? Is there something, some meaning to this word, or that, you know, when we think of magic, we think of...
Let me explain to you why I chose that word.
Okay.
When you start developing your psychic skills, you start being able to have things that you can do that you couldn't do before. For instance, healing. I do healing now. I'm a Reiki master. I teach Reiki. I teach healing, and you do get certain skills. You know, you do get a little bit of ESP, clairvoyance, some psychic skills, and you know things you didn't know before. You get downloads. There are skills, and I think ultimately your powers of manifestation increase, and your ability to manifest actually becomes faster and faster. You're able to rapidly manifest, and ultimately you'll be able to manifest instantaneously, and that's what magicians do. Abracadabra, boom, there's an elephant. It wasn't there before. Let's make this jet disappear, or something like this. So yes, in the Western world, what we refer to as magic, in an Eastern society, you know, they have different names for it. So yeah, magic is a nice catch-all phrase for all of the wonderful skills that you can develop when you increase your psychic skills.
Got you. Now, now I understand that you had this epiphany some time back, but now you're even going further and going to a public event and speaking. It sounds like it's going to be, you know, some information that has not been discussed before publicly.
That's right.
Is there any fear? Have you had any problems, you know, with the black trucks with the blacked out windows following you down the road or whatever?
Well, yeah, over the last 20-something years, certainly. I mean, I've been under surveillance. My family has, my friends, my phones are constantly being monitored. I'm being monitored, vehicles following me, stuff like that. That was my life for a long time. But, you know, if you're going to go down this path, you just got to get over the fear. And several times over the years, I thought, oh, boy, they're going to kill me now for sure. Oh, boy, I've really done it. Oh, boy, I'll be dead tomorrow for sure. You know, they're going to get me. And I actually had a sit-down dinner one night with a very high-ranking caver person who was what I would refer to as a Templar. And this was a person that had been recruited into the organization, and during his recruitment process, we briefed him on several of the things that he was going to get exposed to. And this came to the attention of the people that were grooming him, and they wanted to know who the heck is filling this guy, our recruit here, with all this information. And he basically said, well, these are my people, these guys have been telling me what's going on, and they thought, well, we need to get these people working for us. So we had a sit down, and they talked, and they wanted to know what can you do, and they figured these guys, they think I'm a militia leader. They think I'm going to lead an army of powerful psychics, and we're going to go down into their little underground bunkers and bring them to light and root them out like so many cockroaches. And this is what they fear. But I've essentially turned it around, and I know now it is more noble to serve the victims than to fight the oppressor. But one of the things that's kind of key to answer your question is that I was told by them, and these are Templars, mind you, that I was in the Can't Be Killed Club. So,
yeah, I haven't heard of that. So there's a Can't Be Killed Club. Now,
Yeah.
and why would you fall into that category?
Well, that's a good question. First of all, this is the nature of time. Now, when there is a person who is scheduled to do something that will affect everybody else in the world, those people are referred to as grand trines. And basically, until that person has accomplished whatever it is that they are supposed to do that's going to have this big effect on everybody, you can't touch them. The universe won't allow it. For instance, it's kind of like, I like to think of, look at all the times people tried to assassinate Hitler and they failed. Well, there's a reason for that. Hitler's had a place. He had a role. It was, the universe intended for him to remain on the scene until such time as his purpose was completed, and that's why all of these assassination attempts failed. And I'm sure there's been plenty of other people in history that you could see a similar pattern. But I've seen it myself in my life, because several times in my life people have either tried to come after me for this reason or that. They were always unsuccessful. They would end up either dying or getting some incredibly horrible disease or something that happened to people in their family, and needless to say, they would be thwarted. So it's like these guys, they know better. They don't mess with people who are destined to perform some sort of thing that's going to affect everybody. And then there's another factor also, and that is there's a bloodline thing. As you know from the book that came out here not too long ago that talked a lot about Templars, the Da Vinci Code, a lot of these Templars believe that there are descendants of Christ walking on the earth, and their job was to locate these individuals and protect them. And then there's also the thing about the Templar, the Templars having more than one faction. Apparently there was a faction A and a faction B, and one side, the two sides split, and I think that this happened a couple different times throughout history, but the last time, I believe, was during World War II, when most of the Templars were European blue bloods, and the ones that didn't like Hitler essentially fled the country and went into hiding. So that's a possibility. Then there's also the theory that this has to do with some sort of bloodline that goes all the way back to the Lyrians and their what they did here supposedly in bringing life to the earth. So, I'm a Christian, I'm a Catholic, so it's difficult for me to embrace this, Christ having children running around the world today. But at the same time, I've got these Templar guys following me around, looking over my shoulder, protecting me from people that would do me harm, and trying to control my, what I do and how I interact with other people. So it raises a lot of questions.
Well, it's funny that you just mentioned the Christian Catholic, because I was waiting to ask you this question, what your thoughts and views were on quote unquote organized religion. I've interviewed people that say it's nothing more than an attempt to keep people, thinking one way, but then, so you believe, well, I'm not going to say you believe in it, but you, supposedly say UFOs, ETs are real, but don't.
How does that mesh, huh?
Huh? Was that?
You're wondering how that meshes with a Christian background.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just a little curious on that. What?
That is, that's really good, because this is an important issue that I try to impress upon people, especially Christians that are learning about this sort of thing. And I don't want to slam organized religion, but I am certainly a believer in Jesus and what he came here to accomplish. And I do believe that most of the organized religions have been infiltrated. They do have an agenda. They are manipulated, and they're used as a tool to polarize people and start fights between each other. And this is the nature of this density that we're living on. They polarizing people is a tool they use to keep us from working together and focusing on more important issues like our psychic development. Now, as far as my belief in Christ is concerned and how that has helped me with understanding all of these mysteries, I believe that when you are learning information, you need to take that information from every source out there, and I mean every source out there. So when I study religion, I'm going to study Hebrew literature, Asian literature, Arabic literature, everything. I'm going to take it in. Even the satanic stuff, is as much as I am against it, there is still information in there, and
right.
There's a little bit of truth in everything. So what I do is Christ is my filter, and Christ is my anchor. And if you're going to go down this route, and especially with these people that get involved with the government and the secret agencies, and they get exposed to all these incredible information that's so hard to comprehend, if you don't have the spiritual anchor and the spiritual armor, you're going to go nuts. And what I've seen is a lot of these people that don't have that, these military types, these retired NSA guys, what have you, they all become raging alcoholics because they don't have that spiritual anchor to keep them grounded and to keep their minds focused on where this is really all heading. So, I try to, that's one of the things when I first got really exposed to this stuff, I felt awful alone because, I couldn't go to church and talk to my priest and say, hey, what do you make of all this? This is what I'm having to deal with. What can you tell me? They think I'm nuts. Right. And you tell your friends, I've got friends that have worked in the defense industry and are intelligent people, and I say, well, I'm dealing with the CIA, I'm dealing with the NSA, da-da-da. They think, well, you're a pathological liar. They don't believe it. So it's really difficult, and I do give my ex-wife a lot of credit for her patience with me all these years because, she had to live through it too. And I know it was not easy for her, and she used to ask me, she'd say, gosh, where do I fit into all this? I mean, here I am out trying to save the world, Crusader Rabbit, and she's at home raising the kids, trying to keep a home, and it's not a job for a family man.
Yeah, exactly. On the subject of religion, one thing that we've talked about before on this show is the fact that a few years ago, representative from the Vatican, I'm not sure if it was the Pope or not, but came out and said that it was okay for Catholics to believe in God and in aliens or ET life forms or whatever. Any thoughts on why that may have been said and why just now? Why? Is it just because?
Well, it's getting to where they can't hide it anymore. We have the internet, and they were able to hide this for the longest time, and they just can't do it. A good example of this is like the anti-gravity technology. We have, the Germans came up with it. The Americans have people. We have our own inventor, Townsend Brown, who came up with the same concepts that were developed by the Germans in World War II. And I remember hearing a story about Boeing basically approached the government, and they said, with the Internet now, this stuff isn't secret anymore. People know about Townsend Brown. They know about the magnetic fields and the, I'm not exactly what the effect, there's a name for it, but it's it's like a capacitor, with a positive charge on one side and negative charge on one side, and the positive side goes up and the negative side pushes. But Boeing basically came out and said, gee, everybody knows about this stuff already. It's not a secret. Why can't we start incorporating this technology into our commercial aircraft? they're already incorporating it into the military aircraft. The B-1 bomber, not the B-1, but the stealth bomber, uses advanced ion propulsion technology that's still considered top secret. And they try to tell us that it takes, 12 hours or 24 hours or whatever for one of these things to fly from Missouri to Baghdad and back. That's not true. They're making that trip in a few hours, but
wow.
That's because they're using ion drive systems.
Wow. Well, Steven, is there anything in particular? I know that you were saying that people need to wake up and get ready for this change that's coming, I guess you would say, or this evolving to the next level. Is there a timeline that you feel is accurate?
It's that you're talking about. This is the most important aspect of this entire issue: what people need to do in their own minds and bodies to prepare for whatever it is that's coming. I try to tell people, don't argue over what you think is going to happen and what may or may not happen. That's irrelevant. For all you know, it could all happen. What's more important is to get your house in order. And it's not that hard to do. And the benefits of doing this can be realized immediately. And it's relatively simple.
And do you talk about that in your book?
Oh, yeah, most certainly. I would say that a good portion of the book, once we get past the cloak and dagger stuff, is devoted to spiritual lessons and how we can enhance our own psychic skills, and what benefits and what you can do with that knowledge.
Yeah.
I could go on and on about what you can do. For instance, I'm a healer. That's sounds kind of strange to some people, but I've been doing this now for a while. I've worked on people with cancer and broken bones and all psychological issues and whatnot. And I've gotten to the point now to where I don't even have to be near the person. I heal people on the internet all the time. I'll be chatting with one of my friends in Russia or some other part of the world, and they're like, "Oh, I got this really bad headache," or "Oh, I'm having this terrible stomach ache," or something. I'll say, "Okay, well, hang on just a second here. Let me take care of that," and I'll do my little Reiki thing and wave my fingers in the air and recite the little chant or whatever it is that you do when you're doing it. And then I say, "Oh, you feel better tonight?" "Wow, I feel better." And I'll tell you, the woman that I live with, she's an interesting character because I can't lay my hands on her. It's too much. She can't. It's actually uncomfortable for her if I try to use my hands to heal her. But if she goes to work, 12 miles away, she'll call me up and say, "Well, I'm having really bad cramps," or "I've got this headache, it just won't go away." And I'll take care of it. I'll just say, "Okay," a minute later, and I'll call her back. "How's that headache? How are those cramps?" Say, "Much better." And it's wonderful.
Well, I tell you, I don't know how you do it, so I'm obviously not in the know. But I tell you, the information that you've talked about tonight, Steven, is just amazing stuff. It really is, and it's been a fantastic conversation. I believe you're going to be speaking on Saturday night. Is that correct? At the Alchemy event?
I don't know if he's changed the schedule. Last time I looked, I was coming on at 5:30. I don't know if he's got me going on at 6 or 7. He's brought in a couple different speakers and he's shuffled things around a little bit, but for the most part, it looks like he's got me prime time on Saturday.
Okay. And just so people know, they can get more information on the Alchemy event at alchemyevent.com. All one word, alchemyevent.com. There's just a ton of information out there. I see Dr. Roger Lear is going to be speaking there. He's one of my favorite people to listen to as well. Mm-hmm. And then also your book, Lasers, Cavers, and Magic, yes. Available now on lulu.com.
Yeah, very excited about that.
Well, we'll definitely...
So I'll tell you...
Go ahead.
Well, if you go ahead and get the book and you read it prior to the conference, you're going to know all the things that I'm going to be talking about. So
it'll give you a little inside scoop on there, right?
Yeah, you want the inside scoop, get the book. It'll all be in there.
Well, I tell
Nothing
you,
held back.
Stephen, we could go on forever. Unfortunately, time does not permit that, but I would love to have you back on sometime and talk a little bit more in-depthly about some of these other subjects, the Billy Meyer stuff and all that. I'd love to hear some more about that. So maybe after your Alchemy event and things settle down about, maybe you can come back and talk with us some more.
Sure thing. Yeah, just send me an email and let me know when you'd like to have me standing by, and I will be ready for you.
Excellent. Well, Stephen, thanks so much again for taking time out. I know you had just one call after another tonight, and so you're probably pretty bushed. So thanks again, and good luck on the Alchemy event coming up on November 16th, 17th, and 18th in Los Angeles.
Great. And hopefully we'll see some of your listeners there. So come and talk to me and tell me you heard the show. That would be wonderful.
Absolutely, it would be. So we'll have links to all of this on the show as well when it's played back on the YouTube Topic UFO page. So people should be able to get that information.
Before I let you go.
Yes.
Before you let me go, I'd like you guys to visit my Facebook page, and it's easy enough to find. It's Steven, STEVEND, Kelley, KELLEY, and yeah, I've got lots of room for friends. So please, by all means, you guys come and friend me.
Absolutely. I will. I'll send you a friend request tonight.
Hey, that's great.
All right, Stephen. Well, listen, thanks again, and again, good luck on your speaking engagement there in Los Angeles.
I appreciate it. Hey, thanks for having me on.
You've got it. Anytime. Thanks a lot, and have a good evening. Bye-bye.
You too. Good night.
The answer is to keep it. You'll believe it when you find something screaming across your mind. Green slime.
Welcome, everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of Topic UFO. Tonight we have a most interesting guest coming to speak with us. His name is Steven D. Kelley, and he is going to be a keynote speaker at the upcoming Alchemy event 2012 Cosmic Activation, which is going to be taking place in Los Angeles, California, this upcoming November 16th, 17th, and 18th. I'm sure we'll be talking with him about that. Steven just has a very wide background. He comes from government contract work. Them have been around for quite some time. How have they managed to keep the public so stupid, so dumb, so unaware?
Yeah. Well, it's anytime anybody comes out and they try to spread the word, spread the truth, or leak some of this information, the first thing they do when they go into damage control is they tear that person apart and they basically portray them as being insane. And this has stifled quite a few people. And of course, there's the fear factor. Certainly, probably a lot of people have died in the past trying to promote this this sort of information. And I guess the thing is that I reached a point in my life where I decided, well, they haven't killed me yet, so I'm going to go forward, and I don't have any fear anymore. I got over it. And so basically I went from being a very militaristic, technically oriented person working on systems for weapons to a very...
Was heavily involved in producing different types of lasers. He has a book coming out soon, and he's also met with some very instrumental people within the ufology circles, I guess you could say, and so I'm just can't wait to hear about that. So without further ado, I am just going to go ahead and ask him to join us. Stephen, are you out there?
Yeah, Rick. Hey, how you doing?
Very good, very good. I understand you've been just battled by the press today, huh? You've just been one interview after another, so we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you.
So, Stephen, it's hard for me to say where we should start off. You want to, where would you like to start off in this life story of yours?
Well, that's you're right. It is pretty complex, and I don't know exactly how much time we've got to devote to that. But for the sake of your listeners, I'll just say that it was black and white. It was all shades of gray, and the good guys were a little bit bad, and the bad guys were a little bit good. So that started me on the process of reevaluating my religious concepts and my politics and my feelings about history and everything else. And this process continued over quite a few years, at least 20, 25 years or more. I subsequently got involved with a group, people that I would refer to as Templars and Cavers, or the Cavers actually are Bilderberger types, but I call them Cavers because they tend to live in these underground bunkers scattered across the country. And that's a big deal. I think everybody needs to know that there is a shadow government, and they do operate from underground, and it is very much a feudal system. It's almost like the castles from the medieval days. We're still peasants and kings, and the kings now, they build their castles underground, so we don't see these things anymore.
Well, Stephen,
but anyway,
let me ask you, how, I take it these underground agencies, or whatever you want to call them.
From an early age, I got involved with the electro-optics industry and got heavily involved with the building weapons during the Reagan defense buildup back then. From there, I went off to start my own company, laser company, and subsequently got involved with some of these agencies, CIA and eventually the NSA. And during this process, especially with the NSA guys, they were, it seemed like they were always trying to ship me off to this place out in Las Vegas that we call Area 51.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, and that was a reoccurring theme. That followed me for quite a long time, but it seems like these guys, they know more about you than you can imagine. With this alien technology, they go in the future and they can see what everybody's doing in the future, and then they know who to go and try to control and keep an eye on. But it was my experience with these NSA guys that caused me to essentially wake up and realize that the world wasn't what I had been raised to think it was, and that nothing